Alrighty, welcome back everybody to the 13th week of the JavaScript Tech Bytes session. If you are joining us from the way early weeks of June, welcome back to the 3 months and 1 week mark of the JavaScript session. If you are coming from our web development course, you are welcome as always as well. Thank you for joining us for the 5th week of the web development course. And throughout both of these courses, we have truly done so much, expanding our knowledge from the building blocks of block coding to now making great and grandiose projects. Big words for big products for big people like us now it is looking like, right? Well, it is truly awesome to see the way we have come. And today you can expect nothing less. We will continue to be working on our projects, perfecting them, and making our way onto new products and ideas, just building our backpack of tools and skills. So thanks for joining us. Let's get to it. In case you don't already know who I am, guys, I am Rayan Siddiqui. I am a senior at James B. Corn High School. I have made multiple apps for the App Store, recently released one this past weekend. I have created dozens of different websites, and I'm really looking towards the content creation side of my skill, developing that skill side now in terms of posting content on my YouTube channel, writing articles. And if you want to check out more about me and what my products have been, I would highly recommend that you check out my website at rayansiddiqui.com. All right, so let's get down to today's agenda. That being the first thing, we're going to get a quick reminder for our new schedule in case anybody is not aware of what has our new schedule has transpired into. And then we're going to get down to our fun fact of the day. Those are always pretty cool, relating to the programming language which we are studying to a general world application or just something cool, you know what I mean? And then thirdly, we will be finishing our Jeopardy game, answer any questions we might have, and then just adding some little extensions. We're not going to be adding as much code per se as we did last week. Last week and the week before were truly pretty intensive coding days. We truly did a lot, and I will be happy to answer any questions and review the code which we have typed. It will also be available in the Google Classroom as always if you need a fresh copy. And then we're going to talk about our next project, which is going to be an even bigger and cooler project. So without any further ado, let's get to it. All right, so a quick reminder of September, for this month of September, moving on to the school months since school is opened. It has been almost 3.5 weeks for me and almost 2 weeks for you guys, I believe, if you are in the District 54. But nonetheless, we have shifted our schedule from the regular 2 p.m. start time to 3 p.m. So you may notice that today this video may go up a bit later in case you aren't here, or you may notice the time. It is currently around 3 p.m. And that is because we have pushed back the Tech Bytes all of our Tech Bytes program by an hour, just to make sure that we can get more people joining, spread the word to your friends, and the more the merrier. So as you guys can see, if I turn the highlighter tool on, we can see that all of our programs, including Team Trivia, which is going to be happening this Friday, be sure to join that if you want to have a great time playing some trivia, getting on that online leaderboard. That will also be happening at the 3 p.m., not 5 p.m. anymore. Next Monday, we got Labor Day. Hopefully you guys have a good weekend. And then we got our Hack Central program on Tuesday at 3 p.m., where we're going to be talking about some advanced computer science topics like machine learning and putting that into application. So main theme, guys, is that all of our programs will be starting at 3 p.m. Just the days are a bit different, but web development course will still, like today, be happening every Wednesday. All right, so let's get down to our cool JavaScript fun fact of the day. A mouthful, right? Well, that fun fact of the day today is that there are many similar ways to JavaScript to build web pages. Now, what does that mean? Well, let's dissect it piece by piece, right? So what I'm saying is that there are multiple different platforms through which we can create websites. So throughout the past 13 weeks, we have been learning about the language of JavaScript, through which we have learned that we can make our own web pages or web applications. And those web applications are physical places, right? Because we have buttons, we got JavaScript, we have HTML, we got CSS to make our web pages look nicer. And all of that allows us to make a web page. Well, these three images, this left representing a framework called Vue.js, this middle one representing a framework called Angular, and this right one representing a framework called React. Well, all three of these are frameworks. Now, before I dive deeper, a framework, guys, is essentially a tool or something which allows us to do something more efficiently in terms of computer programming. And all three of these are frameworks, aka platforms for us to make web pages in a simpler and easier manner. To put it simply, guys, we have learned in the past almost 2 months now, in which we've been actually typing out code, that making our own buttons, creating our JavaScript, adding that CSS to make it look nice, something which we haven't done to a large extent, but definitely something which we shall cover, can get a bit tedious with standard HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. However, if we did decide maybe in the future, this could be one of the things, but this is definitely a bit advanced, so don't get scared off. Do not click off this video, guys. This is not something which we'll be doing, but just a fun fact to get our brains rolling for the day. That being that we can use one of these frameworks to make our lives easier, in the sense that if we use one of these frameworks, we can create HTML elements, add CSS much faster. So I do not want to lose anybody or confuse anybody, but the main fact of the day is that we're just relating the fact that there are other ways to create web pages, and one of the ways which we are learning about, though in my opinion, what is the most original, the best starting way to learn about creating those web pages, that being JavaScript. However, I just want to expand our perspective about computer programming. It's super important, especially in today's society, to have a large perspective, always being ready to learn about and hear about other ideas which you may or may not be interested in about. And that not only applies to society and life skills, but it also applies to, you guessed it, computer programming. And in this case today, it applies in the sense that there are other ways to do something which we're learning about. And generally, it's something you shall encounter as you learn more and more about coding. And it's truly one of the things which makes coding so fun, and because there's so many different ways to do that one thing. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. All right, so today's third point on the agenda is finishing our Jeopardy game. So if you have not been following along with us for the past couple of weeks, a quick recap is that we have been working on this Jeopardy game for almost the past month. I believe today marks the 1 month anniversary of this game. We have invested a lot of time learning the ins and outs, the little quirks and the details of what goes into creating a large scale game. In our first game, that being Jeopardy, we have truly done a lot learning about and putting into use fundamental concepts like variables, functions, parameters, combining our HTML with our JavaScript, using the DOM to manipulate our HTML, using logic and if-else statements. We have done a lot of things. And today, we're going to be finishing our game off with adding more JavaScript, in the sense that we're going to finish off by adding one more button, that being a reset functionality button. Then we're going to get into some styling. We have always in this course talked about that there are 3 files which make a web page: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Well, we haven't really tuned that much into CSS. However, today I want to take the time out of our day to see how we can actually make our web page look nice. And if we can hopefully do that, it would also be pretty cool if you want to share this with your friends, your family. Always nice to show others what you are making with this tool of coding, just because the language which we are doing it on with JavaScript makes it nice and easy to share what we create. And then lastly, if you guys have any ideas for other features which we want to add, if not today, we can definitely go back to this project in the future. However, yeah, so without any further ado, let's launch up our project. Alrighty. As always, guys, hopefully you have created a JS Fiddle account so that you can save your progress, as we have truly made a lot of progress on this game over the past month. In case you have maybe lost the game, maybe you didn't have an account, whatever the case might be, you had an error, you can always go on to our Google Classroom code, the code being QAF7IBJ right there. And then all you got to do is head on over to our classwork tab, go on over to any one of the JavaScript Tech Bytes recaps over the past 4 weeks, head on over to the week 12, for instance, and then you can find the link to the fresh copy, which I have with the correct code. And you can pull that up, and if you click that link, you can see that it takes us to the working copy. So just a nice little tool right there. If you would ever get lost, ever need help, always nice to pull that copy up. Give everybody a quick minute to get on and be ready. All right. So in case you have not been keeping up with us, I'm going to do a quick playthrough of how the game actually works. You know, last week we did a lot of coding in the sense that we filled up and populated our arrays with questions and answers for each category. Anna was not here last Wednesday, I believe, but Anna, we did add indeed the Lord of the Ring questions and answers. I had to look up on a website for the correct answers because I did not read the book, but we got that category going on as well. And then last week, another key aspect was that we finished off the evaluation phase in the sense that the user could click a button. So this question is asking us who wore number 23 for the Chicago Bulls. Whenever you think about that, you always remember that the announcers announcing Michael Jordan, but obviously the answer is if you're from the city, the great Michael Jordan. And then the key aspect which we added last week was that if I hit submit, we should see our score go up because we are using this global variable. Why is it global? Well, it's global because it's outside of our functions, meaning this variable is not being declared inside of this function anywhere inside of there. Hence, we can use it throughout our whole JavaScript. So a counter example would be that since we have this variable called button value, it is a local variable. That being because it is inside of our function. So just a quick refresher on that. And then once we evaluated if the question if the answer which the user inputted was the correct answer, comparing that to the question using a nice for loop, making our lives easier. And then once we had checked that, what we simply did was that we used the DOM, the document object model, to manipulate our HTML and then display the latest score. So if I hit run again, oh, it should be running. And then if I do a separate category, say I want to do a question about current events. 250, what is the name of the current president? If I put in the correct answer, we should see 250 points. So I'm going to do now 1,000. Who was the Super Bowl MVP? Well, that was Patrick Mahomes. There we go. So as we can see, the game is working correctly. If I do let's do this. How many teams did the Los Angeles Lakers go without making the playoffs? I believe the answer is 10. And yes, it is. We see that we keep on earning a good amount of money. Now today, along with adding that reset functionality feature, Jeopardy is not only a one-sided game, right? Because you can't only just make money and say I'll do like $1,000 question. If I put the wrong answer in, nothing happens. In the original game show, which is currently hosted by Alex Trebek, a great host, you learn that usually you get deducted if you miss an answer to a question. So today, that's going to be our focus, that we are going to add that feature that if you get an answer wrong, you unfortunately will lose some points because that can't be fair. You can't always just win points, right? We added that feature into our game as well. We'll add that reset button functionality as well. And then one feature which I'm thinking about, which just came into my mind, is that we can even add that ability so that if you've answered a question, that button becomes disabled in a sense that you cannot click it again. Something is interesting to think about, right? Well, for today, what we're going to do is just, because we're trying to finish this game, make it look nice and all of that, we're going to add that feature of firstly, the user gets deducted points if they answer something incorrectly. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the answer to that is Booleans. Remember Booleans, guys? They are variables which can either have a value of true or false, true representing, well, the condition is true, and false representing not true, right? So we are going to use a global variable of a Boolean. In checking, what we'll do is that if the user, in this loop, we'll check if the user answer matches any of the answers in the array, then we'll say, hey, they got an answer right. However, if they do not get an answer correctly, then we shall manipulate the value of our Boolean to false, and then we'll do some evaluation like that. So let's get to it. All right, so let's go ahead and start off by typing out our global Boolean variable. So I'm going to call mine var correct answer inputted. And initially, I'm going to give the user the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say that, hey, the user entered the answer to the question correctly. So we have declared and initiated our Boolean variable. And then what I'm going to do is that if the user ever gets a question correct, I'm going to make sure that the Boolean value stays true. So what we can do is, in fact, if you want to remember that idea, guys, of abstraction, always trying to minimize the code we have to clean up our code, use parameters, all that good stuff. What we can do is that, a quick refresher, if you weren't here last week, we added this for loop, right? Which does the checking for us to see if the user has inputted a correct input, which matches one of the answers from the arrays, which we have previously coded. Well, we have this statement, this big if statement right here, which is saying that if the answer which the user has inputted through this text box, we're getting that answer through this line of code, if that answer does match one of the answers which has been in the arrays, then award the user some type of points depending on what type of question it was. Well, what we can do now is that just go outside of the scope of this large if statement, do else if, or we can just do an else actually, open and close squiggly brackets, like such, hit enter, tab in, and then the main idea is that whatever this code will run, this code will run whenever the condition in the if statement is not met. So what does that mean? Well, this is the idea that if this if condition is not met, what does that mean? Well, let's trace it on back. This if statement is checking if the user has inputted any one of the correct answers. So the opposite of that would be, yeah, the user has not inputted any correct answers. So what we can do is simply go down here and then we could say that, hey, then deduct some points from the user. Oh, 1 second. So yeah, so we could say that the user has not entered a correct answer. So the reason why I'm going over this other way of which it is not using the Boolean value is just to sort of relate back to that initial idea of our fun fact of the day. That being there are multiple ways to do something. So for this case, I'm not going to be using this else statement. We're going to go back to our Boolean just so that we can get that into more practice. It's been a while since we used a Boolean. It was in our first or second week of this game. So we're going to go back to that idea, guys. We're going to say that if the user has ever entered a correct answer for any amount of points, we're going to make sure that our Boolean has a value of true. And the same, yeah, so it has a value of true. Sorry about that. And the thing which I did want to point out was that since we know that the code inside of this if statement will only run if the user has inputted a correct value, what we can do is just say that our Boolean value is true, like such, only one time. All right. And then one thing which we do have to change now is that we're going to say that the user has initially inputted the incorrect answer. So set that equal to false. And then if the user does input any of the correct answers, we set our Boolean variable equal to false. And then I'm going to go outside of the scope of our for loop. And now we got to write a logic statement to check if the value of that Boolean is still true, then hey, the user got the question right. But if it was false, then we can deduct some amount of points from the user. So here we go. We're going to do if we're gonna get our Boolean, that is correct answer inputted. Now remember, there are two ways which we can write the statement. We can either do the value of our Boolean equals false, equals false, or we can do the shortcut method, that being adding an exclamation mark. So that is shift number 1. And that says essentially that if the value of the Boolean correct answer inputted is false, run whatever code is in here. So once we are checking if the user has inputted a wrong answer, we got to deduct some points from the user. However, how many points do we deduct from the user? Is it a random fact? Is it however much we want? Well, give me 1 second. I'm going to show a quick way how we can get a random number of points and subtract that from the user. All right, so we can get a random number of points which we can subtract from the user. So whenever the users say they answer the wrong question, say they put the player LeBron James, well, they should get deducted some points. Well, here is a line of code which we can accomplish that with. If you see it is commented right here, if I uncomment this line, oh, okay, we can type it out, that's fine. There is this long line of code which can do that for us, which can hold a random value. So first, let's create a variable to hold that random value. We can say var subtract from user points, because this variable will determine how much we subtract from the user's score. And then what we got to do is do math dot floor opening close parentheses, one more opening close parentheses, then again math dot random opening close parentheses again, go outside one parentheses, then do the shift number 8 for the multiplication symbol, times, we'll do times 1,000, go outside one more parenthesis, and then we'll do plus 1. Now, whoa, that's a long line of code, right? It's like reminding me of that similar line of code, the document.getElement.id, right? It's one of those DOM properties. Well, we're not manipulating the DOM right here, but it is truly a long line of code, but it's pretty simple to understand once we actually get what's happening. And what is happening here, guys, is that this line of code is allowing us to generate a random number between 1 and 1,000. So actually, if I do something really quickly, if I show you guys how it works, head on over to a fresh fiddle. Let me make it quick. Button. Okay, so now if I have this variable which is holding a random value, what we'll do is just alert that variable. So remember, what I'm saying is that since we inputted 1,001, this means that our upper bound, so a mathematical term right here, upper bound being the maximum number which we can get outputted, is 1,000 in this case. And then our lower bound, another mathematical term, which represents the lowest number which we can get outputted, in this case is 1. So now if I run this, guys, I'm gonna pick statement right here, random number is, and now we should see it works. So if I click me, we see the random number generated is 90, 324, 601, 540, 554, 897, 883. You get the point, right? Well, the main point is that we are being outputted a random number between 1 and 1,000, and that number can vary from any number, right? So there's a lot of numbers between 1 and 1,000. In fact, 999. So hopefully you understand that point. So the main concept with this line of code is that we can get a random number, and then we're going to use that random number to subtract from the user's points. So how are we going to do the subtraction? Well, it is something which we have done previously, and how we do it is that we're going to reference a global variable which holds the user's score. So if anybody remembers what that is, it is called user score, like such. And then we gotta subtract the random point value which we just generated, right? So what we're gonna do is do user score equals user score minus subtract from user points, whatever that random number is. And then we do not have to manipulate our DOM, aka change the number of points we have, or the label at least, the ID, sorry about that, because we are already doing it at the end of the function. So if we repeat this line of code, we're not abstracting our code, which is not what we're trying to do. So if I do hit run button, guys, now, we'll do this question. I'm going to answer this question correctly first. We get the points. We see that we got 100 points. But now, see, I click the $250 question. Who was a player who went to the NBA Finals 9 years in a row? I know the answer is LeBron James, but I'm going to put a different player. Say I put Shaq. We should see our score probably become negative, right? If we're thinking of a probability. And if we do, oh, are we? Oh, okay. So one key thing which we are forgetting is that we have to repeat the value of our Boolean variable and reset it to false every time this function runs. Now you might ask why. Well, think about it this way. The first time we run our function, it knows that our Boolean value is false. And then it's in the first time we run this code, we input the wrong answer, we will be subtracted a random number of points. However, previously what we were doing is that if the user answered the question correctly the first time, this variable would always stay true, meaning this condition would never be met and the code inside of that logic if-else statement would never be run. However, now if we reset it every time, then we can make sure that if we answer a question incorrectly, our points will be subtracted. So if I hit run, answer this question about Michael Jordan correctly, we have 100 points. And now if I do a second question about who was a player who went to the finals, if I put Shaq, we see that our points are subtracted by a random value. In this case, looks like it is $695, and it is represented, and looks like we are in the red, even though it's not red, meaning that we are in the negative below zero. All right. So now the other feature which we are going to add today is a reset functionality. How are we going to do that? Well, let's go up here firstly and just copy and paste the code for a button. So we'll call it reset. I'm going to change the function on click to say reset game. Run it. See that the button does appear. Now we got to actually code that function. So I'm going to go down outside of that function, make a new function, whatever you named it up here. So in my case, it was reset game. Opening close parentheses, opening close squiggly brackets, like such. Now, what are the variables which we have to reset for the game to actually reset? Well, the first variable which comes to my mind is that we got to reset the user score to 0. So what we're going to do is user score equals 0. Are there any other variables which we have manipulated and got to make sure we change? Well, something which we can do is actually copy this line of code where we're changing the question which the user is being displayed, which they got to answer. And I'm just going to set it equal to some blank question marks. Now you might ask why? Well, just to make the screen look clean and truly make the game reset. And speaking of cleaning the screen, I'm going to change what the score is so that it is updated to $0, because when you reset a game, you get back to that 0 point value. And now, if I run my game, $100 question, who were number 23? That was Michael Jordan. Hit submit, we got to score $100. And now if I hit reset, our score variable should become 0, and we should see no question being displayed. And if we do, there we go. Now, one more thing which we have to make sure that we take care of is that this text box is still holding the value of Michael Jordan. Well, how can we replace that? Well, something which we can do is use that same idea of manipulating the DOM. So if we go like this, I'm just going to test this out. If we just try this, give me 1 second, let's see if this works for today. Okay, now we cannot try. That's fine. All right. So that is the basic idea. We don't really have to change the value text box, but that is something which we can definitely extend upon. One second. Somebody's asking, I am mute. Yeah, so hi, Abhishek. This is Tech Bytes, the web development course where we are covering the language of JavaScript. We are currently working on a Jeopardy project. If you want to look at what we've done previously, you can visit our Google Classroom. The code is QAF7IBJ. And you can also find the links to our recorded YouTube videos where we talk about the course and all of our past concepts where we learned and made projects on the Schomburg Library's YouTube channel. There is a playlist called Tech Bytes where you can find all the videos previously. All right, so that last part which we are still working on is adding that feature so that this text box gets cleared up when we reset our game. And similarly, how we can do it is that if we use this DOM manipulation, we got to grab the ID of our text field like such. And then we have to instead of doing .inner HTML, we got to do .value equals a blank set of quotation marks. Now, give me 1 second. Here is the code, Abhishek. I will drop it in the chat as well. No problem. And you can find all of our old videos on the Schomburg Library's YouTube channel. So if you have any questions, as always, you can look on the classroom as well for old code examples as well. Great. All right. So this line of code, guys, is going to allow us to clear our text field because instead of using the .inner HTML for text fields, we got to treat them a bit differently. In this case being that we got to do access the value property. And if I hit run now, I'll answer the first question with Michael Jordan. Hit submit, and if I hit reset, we should see our text field value clear up. And I believe it just did. I'll do one more time, and that's pretty fast. Hit submit, hit reset, and there we go. We see our text field values cleared up, and it's like a fresh new game. All right, so we have successfully, guys, now I think we have truly finished off all of the JavaScript for this game. 138 lines of great code, which we have typed in the past 4 weeks, along with a lot of HTML. And our game does function properly. We can play, answer questions. It's truly like a Jeopardy game with the submit feature, the evaluation, the resetting. We have truly come a long way. And one last thing which we would like to extend upon is the idea of using the CSS. So if we want to make I have this fiddle pulled up right here, our game look a bit nicer, adding categories like this, it could look really nicely. And what we could do is just copy and paste this code, which creates separate categories for us, if that is something which we would like to do as well. So in order to implement this now into our game, we're going to have to do a lot of copy pasting here now, guys. So this CSS, it was not written by me. It was off a website because it just looked nice, and I thought it'd be nice to use this. And I do not expect you guys to type all of this code out. It will be available, the link to the project in the Google Classroom. So what I'm going to do is just paste it into the CSS tab right there. Remember, the CSS is what allows us to make our web page look nice, because look at all that. It looks very nice, right? And this comparatively looks a bit less, right? And then once I have that, we got to copy some of the HTML like such. And actually, to make our lives easier, all we got to do is copy this first line of the div. Now, we're not going to go over what a div is. That is something for another day. But basically, a div will allow us to hold some type of HTML element, whether it be a tag, whether it be a paragraph tag, or a button. So what we're going to do is that take our first $100 bill, $100 button, buttons, indent them one space ahead, and then I'm going to finish off the div, because remember, whenever we have any HTML element, guys, we always got to close the tag off. And now, if I hit run, we should see it look nice. There we go. We see that our game looks much nicer, and the functionality should not change. So if I hit a $100 question, we still see a question being displayed. And now we can use that same idea of using that div, same thing, indentation, and then finish the tag off with the closing div, like such. It is the less than sign, greater than sign, and then the backslash div, and then greater than sign. If I hit run again, we see that our $250 questions look nice as well. And then we can essentially continue this throughout for our whole game. That's something I will let you guys do and extend upon. There are many other websites as well. I would highly recommend. There's a website called W3 Schools, which allows us to add some nice CSS. It is actually where I got this CSS from. However, that was the main focus of this game for this week. So just a quick recap, guys. This game has finished now. We have taken 4 weeks, and we have truly done a lot. We have come a long way of being able to take the user's response, evaluating it, asking the user different questions. And yeah, if you would like, you can definitely customize this game even more. I will open up a post in the Google Classroom if you would like to post your own render, your own version of the game. Something we definitely would like to see, something we've done in the past as well. And yeah, if there are no questions on any aspect of the game regarding the JavaScript, the HTML, the CSS is something I don't really want you guys to be too focused on. I just wanted to show you guys a tad bit today that we can incorporate it with what we do, but it's not fundamental to our learning right now. We're just learning about JavaScript and HTML mainly, but something you know now is that you can make your web pages look cooler and nicer because of CSS. All right, guys, then that is it for this week. We have successfully finished our Jeopardy project. It will be linked in our weekly update on the Google Classroom. Be sure to stay up there, guys. We are always pushing out updates regarding Tech Bytes and all the latest. But next week, we will be talking about our new project, that being the calculator project. We will be creating our very own calculator. That will also be a multi-week project, and it will be a bit more fast-paced than this Jeopardy project because we have been learning more and more. And as always, we'll be taking time to answer any questions, any misconceptions, whatever the case might be. But as always, I hope you guys enjoyed today's session. Hopefully you learned something new with the fun fact of the day. And I highly recommend that you show your game off to your friends, your family, have a great time, get some other people involved as well. But if you will be attending the Teen Trivia this Friday, I will see you then. Or remember, this upcoming Monday is Labor Day, so our Intro to Programming course will not be happening. So I wish you guys a good long weekend. But other than that, I hope you guys take care. I'll catch you guys on the next one. See you guys.